unmute your microphone and feel free to say hello.
Yep, I am here. If you can hear me, hello.
I sure can hear you, Joseph. So welcome to the Curriculum Advisory Committee. Vanessa DeCilio, I'm not sure if Vanessa's there, if you can unmute your microphone. Okay, so Vanessa might be coming in a little bit late, I'm not sure. April Palmer.
I'm here.
Oh, Vanessa is there? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Vanessa, welcome to the Curriculum Advisory Committee. April Palmer, are you out there, April? Okay. And then last we have Rhonda Cameron. Okay. So I'm not sure if Rhonda's out there or not, but for the 4 new members to the Curriculum Advisory Committee, we do welcome you. Please feel free to always share your input. I will be talking about time limits as we go forward. First and foremost, we'll discuss the limitations, but right now we're going to go to the approval of the agenda. I don't want to go over too much, or you guys can pretty much see it. So if I can get a second of the approval of the agenda, that would be great.
I'll second.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that because we've had it for, I think, almost over a month now. And then I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting as well. That we had from November 29th.
Second.
Okay. All right. Any questions on those? Okay. All right. So like I said, I see a lot of other people here, and I'm so glad that you guys are with us. So I'm going to reserve about 5 minutes. It shouldn't take about 5 minutes for, so the next thing we're doing is looking at the mission statement. Okay. So let's just take a moment and just review the current mission statement. And it's important that you guys look at the current mission statement as it is, because we are going to be doing a vote on the mission statement tonight. I do want an up or down vote. I don't necessarily believe we should open the floor for discussion. We've had almost 2 months now to make a decision on the mission statement, and we've blocked them off in 4 categories. So take a look at this current mission statement, and then we'll have an opportunity to vote on the mission statements later. All right, okay. And if there aren't any questions about the current mission statement.
I'm sorry. I went too far. I'm sorry. I was trying to let somebody in and my clicker got ahead of me.
No,
do you want you want the continuation of the agenda? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, that's where I was going to reserve the 5 minutes of privilege for the chair. So I wanted to kind of go over this with you guys. And I know we have a very diverse group of educators. We have a very diverse group of college professors. We have a diverse group of parents. So I'm going to speak to you guys, not just the chair of the committee. So I'm going to reserve about 5 minutes. And like I said, probably won't take that long. But I fall into each one of those categories, aspiring to be with as a professor. So as you guys know, I am an educator in the Lee County School District. I have been for 5 years. This is my first year returning. And I'm working on a doctorate at Florida Gulf Coast University. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of great people. And I'm also a parent with 2 sons currently attending one of the elementary schools here in Lee County. All of the issues that we face and we deal with when it comes to curriculum impact me a full head of steam for those different reasons. I know that some people have legitimate concerns about the curriculum that their children are being taught in the public schools. And I will say this publicly myself. I have those shared concerns with you as a parent also. I am not here to judge you for the reasons that you wanted to join this committee. I applaud you for the care and concern that you have for for wanting the best for your children. We all want that. I would guarantee most of the teachers in here are also parents as well. I just ask that even for those who may be experts on the issue, that we all understand the why of curriculum, of what curriculum is. Curriculum is pretty much what we use to drive instruction in the classroom. From a teacher's perspective, as a teacher, curriculum is something that I can adjust myself that I see fit in the classroom. So if you ever have any concerns about the curriculum being taught in the classroom, the very first place that you should always go is to find out what the teacher is actually teaching. Find out what's being taught in the classroom, because sometimes it's not even what the school may approve of. A lot of the issues that some of you guys as parents who may be parents are concerned with, it comes from the social emotional learning aspect. So I would encourage you guys, if there is a committee to join, if there's some real legitimate concerns that you guys have, also consider joining the social emotional learning if there's a committee for that, or being really more active in that. And that's just speaking to you from parent to parent. But as a teacher, the curriculum is pretty much cut and dry, and it's not something that I want to impose personally, or most teachers, 99%, want to impose for any bad notion on you as parents. So I just want to make it clear about what the Curriculum Advisory Committee is. We're here to help bring the best curriculum to Southwest Florida, to Lee County Public Schools, okay? Some curriculum has been great, some of it has not been great, and I can admit that as a teacher. But we do go through a vetting process, and this committee is a part of that vetting process. But I wanted to let you guys know, I don't have any agenda, and I know you don't have any agendas, and they don't look at you guys, and I don't want this committee to ever be accusatory of some of our peers in this group. I am under the assumption, and I hope you guys are under the assumption, that every last one of you guys cares about the children in our school district. And I applaud you for taking the time to join this committee, this very important committee. So just remember our why, and our why is, number one, we want to help the children. And we want to achieve the best curriculum. It's not critical theory, it's not critical race theory, it's not any other theories that other people outside of this group is trying to either push or push against. So let's just remember that why of why we do this. All of you guys volunteered to join this very important committee, and I commend you on that. But let's all remember that we have the same shared perspective, and that's for the kids. And I'll open it up just for 1 minute if anyone wants to add anything, or if there's any disagreement to what I've just shared with you all.
Yeah, Melvin, no disagreement. I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When we first started the committee, and I think I was also at a book reading later part of last year, it has been said that the curriculum that we have is a state approved curriculum. And so I'm wondering if there is a particular statute that we can point to that says we have to use the curriculum that the state tells us we have to use, or if we're using a particular curriculum based on the funding we get from the state.
That is a question that I would defer to Dr. Quisenberry or Ms. Houchin or Ms. Alivato. They could answer that question better than I can at this time, but I can look more into that, Mark, if you'd like for me to, and then I can get Ms. Hernandez to give you my reply. But if Dr. Quisenberry or Ms. Houchin or Ms. Olivato wants to respond to that, you guys can.
Yeah, and if we don't have time for the answer tonight, that's fine too. I just wanted to put that out there real quick.
Okay, and I'll give you a
wait.
follow-up if they don't have one.
Yeah, I'm willing to wait.
Yes, sir.
So the state puts out an adoption timeline for a lot of the cores and some of like foreign language and stuff. And our district follows that timeline. So it happens about every 5 years. Lately, it seems to be about every 7 years. From there, the publishers, they submit their bids based on a rubric. And then, so that's kind of like a lengthy publisher. And so from there, like we look at those publishers, and then eventually the state whittles that down to a short list of publishers. And so to receive full funding for textbook adoption, if you want to receive 100% of the funding that the state provides for you, then you work off of that short bid list, which most of the time that's where we're working off of. And that allows us to use 100% of the funds that the state gives us for that textbook adoption. If you don't use what's on the short bid list, you're only allowed to use 50% of the funds for like supplemental materials. So that's a short answer to your question. I can give you a more detailed report next time.
Okay, and then a follow-up question would be, and if we can wait till next month, of course, that's fine. Has the district ever considered taking the cut in funding in order to bring in a better curriculum?
So Mark, I'll jump in for you real quick. One, I'll give you the state statute, so everyone on the call has it. It's 1006.40. So again, it's 1006, that 40 that just outlined everything Lori talked about. And then, for example, we haven't gotten to bring back to you guys the math textbook adoption, but the math textbook adoption for us next year, K-12, is going to be roughly a little more than $10 million. The typical allocation we get from the state is only about $8 million. So to try and be only able to use half of what Lori was just mentioning, $4 million would not cover all the instructional materials we need from the state. So, but when we come back next month as well, we'll bring you the breakdown and the recommendation of the math adoption as well, just because it's one of those thoughts. It's been asked before. It's a great question. It's why we do use supplemental materials, but we would not be funded enough dollars to be able to do a full textbook adoption.
Thank you for that.
If we're still in discussion on the topic, I have something I'd like to say.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, thank you. I guess one of the things I think would help us going forward is making sure that we adhere to the agenda as it's written. I think it's important to remember that we're bound by Robert's Rules of Order, and to make changes to the agenda requires a motion and a second. So as long as we stick to the agenda, we'll be more on task. Like, for example, questions of purpose. So I think it's the flow of the meeting going.
Thank you, Dave. And so I'll do a better job in terms of monitoring the time that people are allotted to give input. So I would like to probably keep that around 1 or 2 minutes. I just feel like we're adults, so I can kind of monitor that, and you can kind of understand where you can get a point in without over talking or over analyzing. But Dave and others, I would encourage you guys, if it ever looks like it's going off of that point, we're going off the rails a little bit, use your point of privilege to get us back in order, because I can't catch it a lot of times, but just ask the chair for a point of privilege, okay? And if there's no further discussions, we can move forward. But thank you guys for letting me address that, the why with us, and just kind of remember
Thanks, Melvin.
things to kids.
Miss
It's-
Giovanelli is here.
Yeah.
If you want her to do her board report.
Yes, please. Thank you, Ms. Giovanelli, and welcome.
Miss Giovanelli, can you hear us? It says Melissa's iPhone, so I just assumed it was her. Oh, there she is.
I am. I just trying to unmute it. I can't do it very fast. I actually don't have anything because we missed a meeting, and I apologize. I've been extremely busy for this past month because I do the Edison Festival Light Parade. I'm on the board, and then I was in Tallahassee twice, so I am kind of behind the 8 ball. So, Melvin, I just appreciate what you did and what you spoke and tonight, because it is about the kids, and we want what's best for the kids. And so I think that's all why we're all here. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, and great job with the Festival of Lights. It was wonderful. So here we are with the mission statement. I do not want, I know we're what are we allotted? 25 minutes on this discussion. I don't think we have to spend, I would like to not spend 25 minutes on this. What I'm asking for the committee members to do is to have basically an up or down vote. So here's what we have. We have the current mission statement to the left, and then we have the 4 suggested revisions to the right. If it's okay, I don't know if Ms. Hernandez or one of the curriculum directors will be able to keep tally. I would just like for us to have an up or down vote where we can either put into the chat, or if you want to, I think, what do you got to the curriculum directors? What do you think would be best for this? Would you guys like, would it be easier just to put it in the chat of what number everyone would approve of?
I think that would be easy, and then we'd have record as well.
Okay, so what I want you guys to do is I want you to take about 2 minutes to look over the or as much time as you need to look over the revisions, and then we will we'll record your number. So just list your number in. So I'll go ahead and put my number in just as an example for you. Okay, so I've made my selection, and then you guys can just look at which one you choose, and whichever one has the most votes, we'll select from there. If in the event there is a tiebreaker, then what we'll do is we'll take the two revisions, and then we'll go to another vote. Are there any questions?
Just a quick reminder, Melvin, and I think everyone who's in on public comment already knows this, but only actual board members. Welcome to everyone who's here for public comment.
But only actual committee members can vote on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for reminding me on that.
Is that everyone?
I counted 10 votes. Do we have 10 members present tonight?
Yes, I believe so.
So I have no votes for 1, 3 votes for 2, 6 votes for 3, and 1 vote for 4. Anybody else have anything different?
I came up with the exact same, Lori.
Okay, so I guess I would call for an approval to amend our mission statement to number 3, being the mission of the Curriculum Advisory Committee is to provide recommendations to the Lee County School Board on the best instructional resources and practices for K-12 curriculum development and implementation within the school district of Lee County. So it would call for I would need a second for that. So is there anyone that would like to second that for me so we can finalize that as our new mission statement?
I'll
This
second
is
that.
Tanya. I'll second.
All right, thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you. I think Dave second for me. So it is amendment approved. So that is our new mission statement. So going forward, that will be the mission statement that we have for all of our meetings going forward. Good job on everybody that gave input on the mission statement, because it's really important as the very first thing people see when they think about our Curriculum Advisory Committee. All right, so we can move forward. What do we have next? Is this where you guys go in detail?
Yep. So Melvin, I'm gonna actually turn it over to Dr. Savage. Dr. Q, if you could stop presenting and I will go ahead and get the other PowerPoint ready. Perfect, thank you. Give me just a second.
Thank you, Candace, and thank you, Curriculum Advisory, for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I will try to be brief, just to really explain. This adjustment that we are making is relative to our high school schedule. Certainly within kind of the operational purview of being the superintendent, we've had to make a large scale changes before. I can say that from my perspective, these are never easy decisions. And so I think it's very important that you have the opportunity when you are going through this type of decision-making process to take it to special advisory groups and have an opportunity for them to hear it, to hear what has been worked on, and to provide whatever feedback they have as we are rolling out this type of decision, and then the potential impact that it could have. The impact today, the specific issue that I'm here to speak about, is just a change in our high school schedule. Our current high school schedules, for those who are not familiar, operate on what is known as a 4x4 block schedule. On that, the way it is set up in our configuration, because 4x4s can run differently in different places. And so in our particular place, the way we run this is a student will have an A day and a B day, or an odd day and an even day, and they will have 4 classes one day and then a different set of 4 classes the following day. And that is how our high school schedule has been for quite some time. Prior to that, it actually was on a 7-period day. Originally, when the move was made, back when the original adjustment of this type of process was moved from a 7-period day to a 4x4, there were a couple things touted, one of which was the potential educational benefit of longer, deeper periods. So instead of having a short 7-period day, students could be in for a much longer period of time with their teacher, and thusly dig into it quite a bit deeper. From a curricular standpoint, it would allow teachers to teach more than one potential lesson in a day, or for science teachers to really get into a hands-on lab and in-depth activities that they may not have the time for if they were in a more traditional 7-period day. At the same time, while this was touted as an educational benefit, one of the most significant aspects of the 4x4 when it was implemented originally was that our teachers in the high school were asked to teach 7 of 8 blocks. At that time, the contract, the TALC contract, which is our teacher contract, allowed for folks to say teach 4 periods one day and then 3 the next day. So while it was touted as having educational benefits, what it really provided more, that was in a more pronounced fashion, was a decreased need for teachers in terms of the amount of units that you would otherwise need. So in a 7-period day, teachers are teaching 6 sections of 7. In the 8-period day, teachers teaching 7 of those 8 periods. You then needed fewer teachers, which during the time period this was done was when we were expanding significantly in Lee County. We were building upwards of 5 schools in a year and really just dramatically expanding. And as a result, we needed a lot of teachers, a lot of administrators, because we are in a heavy growth time period in our district. And so after doing that schedule for some time, it became evident that it really wasn't an ideal situation for the teachers, because a teacher would have their 25-minute lunch and then whatever planning time they had before after school, which wasn't substantial, but then they would not have a planning period during the workday. So as a result of that original move, we then shifted from having a 7 of 8 during Dr. Browder's time period to a 6 of 8 model. And what that allowed for us to do was have a teacher receive a planning block of time every day, but they were now only teaching 6 of 8. So the economic and staffing benefit that was afforded in the 7 of 8 was lost. And what it instead came, it maintained the educational opportunities for our students in terms of the increased breadth of offerings by allowing them 8 classes. But the downside was that we never really recovered from a staffing standpoint, and from an expense standpoint. The high school schedule then became at that point our most expensive schedule by far compared to the other levels. Not to mention that the teachers who teach in the high school schedule, at least ideally, were theoretically getting more planning time and spending less time in terms of student contact time as well. So as time should have it, as we moved on through that model, one of the concerns that we had was that the high school schedule was also not performing very well academically in terms of student learning outcomes. Our high schools, as recently as a value add analysis that was done before the pandemic, yielded that our high schools collectively as a group were some of the lowest performing in the state collectively. And when the academic services team really tried to understand what was behind that significant collective lower performance for students, they came to a few conclusions. One of them was that they found that our student day was actually a shorter student day than almost anyone in the state. So that was one thing that they noticed. The other piece was they analyzed how the block was actually being taught, and they realized that it was really not being taught as effectively as the block can be taught. And so in some places, for instance, students will have math every day, whereas here they may have math every other day. And that became a little bit of a concern, because if you have students, let's say a Thursday and a Tuesday that they are in the school week, and they miss one of those class periods, they've effectively missed 2 days of instruction as compared to like a 7-period day. And so it is, there are a number of challenges. However, when you go through the pandemic that we just went through for these last 2 years, not only have we experienced tremendous absenteeism and loss of learning, but what we also are now left with, which is very common across the entire country right now, is a national teacher shortage. So when you take into consideration the overall lack of quality outcomes that was being achieved, the inequity in terms of the teacher schedule relative to all other levels, the loss of student learning time, and the significant staffing shortfall that we currently experience, that is, as most recent tally, 131 teaching vacancies, considering that a shift from what we currently do, a 4x4, to back to the 7-period day that we had prior to that shift, would eliminate the need for 140 teaching positions. So the 131 vacancies that we talk about would be completely eliminated simply based on that shift in scheduling. So it's not an inconsequential thing in terms of how it addresses staffing. And I would argue that, prior to the pandemic, I think we had many challenges that we needed to face. But
period or 6-period day schedule, that students get the opportunity to see their teachers every day. And so with that opportunity to see your teachers every day, you have that continuity of instruction, you have that continuity of procedures throughout the course of your high school career. And also moving to the 7-period day, students will gain approximately about 720 minutes, which is roughly about 15 additional days of instruction per course. And then as Dr. Savage talked about, we're estimating somewhere around 140 fewer teachers that are needed. But don't be alarmed if you're a teacher, because remember, we've had vacancies, we've had openings, and so we need our teachers. And so though this reduces teachers by 140 teachers, we still need teachers, and there's a heavy recruitment and making that happen. Clayton's going to talk to you a bit about what's this mean for a student. Candace is then going to walk us through, if I'm an IB student, what does it mean? An ACE student, if I'm an academy teacher, and then we'll talk about what it means for teachers, and then we'll talk about our timeline. So Clayton, a little bit about what's this mean for students?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Candace, can we go to the next slide? So if I'm a student in high school next year, what does it mean for me in a 7-period day? Like Dr. Spiro said, the students will see all of their teachers every day. As of right now, they see their teachers every other day in a lot of their classes. The students will gain additional instruction time throughout the year. The student course load will shift from 8 classes to 7 classes. It will be easier for the students to access and make up missing work since they do see their teachers every single day. It's been proven to improve content retention due to daily instruction, so they continue to build on their instruction daily as they go through it, and they have the same classes every day for the whole year. And it reinforces routine and organizational structures for our students. So what is the schedule going to look like for a student in a 7-period day? They're going to have 7 46-minute blocks. And depending on the school and the number of lunch shifts, they will have lunch somewhere between 4th and 5th period. And this schedule, it has them eating 5th period. And Candace is going to talk to you a little bit about the advanced academics.
So one of the pieces that we wanted to take a look at and talk about tonight is, what does that mean for an IB student? So what you're seeing here is the new progression that we would be following 9th through 12th grade for IB students. IB students really set their schedule at the end of their sophomore year. That's where they pick all their classes for 11th and 12th grade. You'll notice here an IB student can still have electives both their junior and senior year, depending upon what they choose for their junior year. Those students have the ability to take 1 to 2 standard level assessments. Now for our rising seniors though, our current sitting juniors, they haven't had the opportunity to experience that 4-year progression as is. So one of the pieces, it's really important for those students who want to maintain an elective that they're able to do so. So for our rising seniors, we have 2 options. They can say, I'm good, I have all of my requirements, I don't want an extra elective, I'm gonna take theory of knowledge every single day. And then for another student, maybe myself, I wanna be able to maintain an elective. I've had an elective all 3 years and I would still like it for my senior year. Those students will take theory of knowledge on an A day, and then they'll take elective on a B day. So at the end of the year, they're actually going to come out with a half a credit of theory of knowledge and half of a credit in the elective that they selected. We're able to do this by IB standards because IB says they have to take theory of knowledge over their junior and senior year. It does not dictate half credit, whole credit, 2 credits. Just it has to be over their junior and senior year. Another piece when we're thinking about IB students and any of the arts programs, is it possible for them to still participate in arts programs and IB? And the answer to that is yes. So we just need to look at how those are scheduled. So here is a sample schedule for 4 years of how a student can still engage with the arts programs. You're seeing a performing one there, but at any point you can swap those. And just to mention, going back to the IB, that IB schedule, we have 4 IB high schools in our district. So for those of you on the call, that is going to be Riverdale High School, Dunbar High School, Fort Myers High School, and Cape Coral High School. So those are our 4 high schools which offer IB diploma pathways. Now, all 15 of our high schools offer some form of Cambridge courses. The Cambridge program is flexible as it's over 3 years. So if you notice IB, they take the bulk of those classes their junior and senior year. For the Cambridge program though, if you're a Cambridge student, you have 2 tracks, a junior track or a senior track. So what's on the screen here is what this would look like if I was on the pathway to get my diploma for Cambridge junior year. Their decisions come in during their freshman and sophomore year. I can either choose to take 2 or 3 electives. And if I choose 2 elective courses, it also means I'm going to take 2 ACE courses. Because as you've heard everyone prior to me speak, it's a 7-period day. So we want 7 courses throughout the day. If I take 2 electives my freshman year, that means then my sophomore year, I would also take 2 electives and 2 more ACE courses. So depending upon the pathway in which I choose. The only difference during the senior track versus the junior track is that I'm making those decisions now my sophomore and junior year of high school. So those are the differences there. Now for our high schools that offer Cambridge diplomas and arts diplomas, the question is, can they get both? Is it possible to still get an ACE diploma and an arts diploma? And again, the answer is yes. So here is a sample 4-year progression for a student of what that would look like. You'll notice that they come out with their 9 arts credits. Here we're looking at a dance student, but they're still able to meet their requirement of 7 ACE courses and 7 ACE assessments. Now, above and beyond though, what if I want options for additional courses? What if I want additional dual enrollment opportunities, arts opportunities, or any of our academies that we offer? So we still have our partnership through the Lee Virtual School program in addition to Florida Virtual School. So students at any point can choose to take a course with LVS or FLVS, and that would open another elective within their schedule at their traditional school. One of the other pieces that came up last time that we discussed this was, what about marching bands? So students are able to do marching band in the evening without having to have the course on their schedule during the day. We're very fortunate that we have 50+ academy programs running. We've worked already with our director for those programs, and we will be able to keep every single one of those. We'll work with our schools and how to schedule. Some of those may need to be back-to-back periods where students need that additional time to engage in some of their off-campus work. For dual enrollment, the change to the schedule, it does not affect dual enrollment at all. It's very flexible regardless of the schedule that we have. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Simmons, who'll talk a little bit about the teacher impact.
All right, so teachers, next year, how will this affect you during your day? Like we've said, it will give you the opportunity to engage with all of your students every day. It is going to give you increased instructional time with the students. It's going to support continuity of the curriculum and instruction since you do see them every day. And it's also going to help to support the daily routine of the students. Students who miss their class won't have to wait 2 days to see their teachers, or sometimes over the weekend, they'll see their teacher the very next day. Teacher contract hours will not be impacted, and teacher class sizes will not be impacted. And this is what a sample schedule for teachers would look like. Again, it's 7 46-minute periods, and then there's time before school and time after school, non-instruction time. I will say that the before and start time of some of our schools can vary slightly because it is stated in the TAU contract that the principal and the staff can work to adjust the start and end times if needed.
Thank you very much, Clayton. Thank you very much, Candace. And so now I want to share with you a little bit about our communication timeline. Academic Services is doing this endeavor with our Human Resources team. And so you can see back in February, Human Resources was part of this early conversation. We have spoken with our teachers union just to make them aware of the switch from the block to the 7-period day. Of course, our principals have had input on this, as well as our high school assistant principals. So other communication mechanisms that are moving forward. This evening, all high school teachers were sent a video. That video outlines this very presentation you're seeing tonight, has been sent to all high school teachers in Lee County. We are going to be sending a video to all parents and students this week as well, outlining them, and that'll be our middle school parents and high school parents outlining this change to a 7-period day. We have a web page that has been launched. On that web page will be the presentation, as well as what we consider to be probably the most important document, which is the FAQ, frequently asked questions. And so we're going to have an email, which is highschoolschedule@leeschools.net, highschoolschedule@leeschools.net, where anybody's going to be able to ask a question about the transition to a 7-period day. And then we'll add those questions to our FAQs as we continue to build on them. Additional communication that we're going to be doing is tonight, obviously, it's curriculum advisory. Tomorrow night, we're going to be meeting with our parents through the district advisory committee. And then during the week of March 7th, we're going to do additional communications to our parents and our students. We're going to do a video that's talking directly to our students. We're going to make sure that we have it in student-friendly language so they understand what this means for the students. And we'll also be doing additional communication to our parents. We're also going to hold some webinars as well with our community so we can make sure we continue to get those questions answered. And then on March 8th, we're going to be doing a school board briefing. At that point, we should have a lot of questions that we'll be embedding that information into this presentation also. And then on March 16th will be our final advisory, which will be the school board student advisory. And then by March 29th, our high school assistant principals for curriculum will begin to build that framework of the master schedule for the upcoming school year, as well as the process for how high school students will be registering for their upcoming courses as well. And then again, I will put up there on the screen one more time, the email address, screenshot it, write it down, whatever you need to do to pass it on to your family and friends. That's going to be highschoolschedule@leeschools.net. Dr. Savage, anything you want to close with, sir? And now that we've gone through the slides of the presentation.
No, thank you, Dr. Spiro and your team. I know a lot of work went into this over multiple years. And it's, anyone who thinks that, this is a magic bullet, a magic answer to all of our issues, it is not. And I think I don't want anyone to believe that that is, there are pros and cons to every decision. There is no perfect master schedule. There are pros and cons to all of them. The 7-period day has the benefits that you'll see in there, but it certainly has its drawbacks. But it is a very workable schedule. It is definitely something that is one of the most common in the state of Florida as well. And while a move of this magnitude will have an impact, the thing that I want you to think about, the number that I keep coming back to in my mind, is 140 teachers. That is, and here's one other number I didn't mention, roughly $10 million. This is approximately $10 million that we can reinvest into our general fund. And so we talk about things like raising salaries for teachers, paraprofessionals, more resources, any things that we would need. $10 million is a very good sized number. It also tells you what the cost has been to this district in order to continue to run the 6 of 8, which we knew was not equitable. And even though I don't have the data here in front of me today, but I can show it, that's something that I certainly saw was how this schedule performed was really just not very effective for us. It'd be one thing if it was achieving tremendous results for our students, but it was not. The one thing that it did, I think, though, a very good job of was offering the breadth of offerings that we've come to expect. Having 8 courses for students is a very, very positive thing that is unfortunately a downside of this particular implementation. Anywho, that said, that's all I have, Dr. Spiro. Any questions that we would take from the group, though? I don't know how much time we've allotted for that.
We'll let Mr. Whitlock facilitate that part because I know he wants to stay with this agenda, so we'll let him handle that part. Melvin?
First and foremost, thank you, each of you gentlemen, for a very detailed presentation. I'm anxious to see that as a teacher myself, how this is going to work for us. So I don't have any questions. However, I will open the floor up for anyone in the advisory committee. If you have any questions, just keep them to maybe about 30 seconds to a minimum.
I have a quick question.
Sure, Joe, go ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Savage, you mentioned very early on about a report with assessment and so on. Is that something that is public report or something you could, I know you just mentioned that, you don't have it available at the moment. Is that something we can take a look at just to know what it'll look like and so on?
I'd be happy to share with Curriculum Advisory. We had an internal report essentially value add model, essentially to set. One of the challenges we always ask education is, we know that unfortunately the challenge educationally cuts oftentimes across socioeconomic lines, so that schools are often graded, and many times we've yet to have a so-called failing suburban school. That's concerning because it belies an idea that, you know, if a school's an A or B, that means it's a great school. In reality, it may just mean that it is a school that has students who are performing well, which may or may not be because of how the school is actually performing. You might find a C school that is one of the best in the state, and the current state grading model does not really demonstrate that. So that becomes a challenge. So one of the things we're always looking for is metrics that can detect performance beyond what would be otherwise visible to the state accountability system. So that was one such report that collectively, and really surprised us to find that the high schools were collectively performing about a standard deviation lower. And thusly, it was a real concerning moment for us in academic services. This was predating Dr. Spiro being in his role, but once he did assume his role, they really studied it that entire year. And that's when they found the time disparity, among other issues. So I hope that answers that question. Be happy to get some visualization, data visualizations from that presentation that we had when we first went down this road. That was a part of our presentation package. It just isn't a part of the nuts and bolts of this current presentation.
Yes, thank you. That helps. Right? Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Spiro. Are there any other questions? The floor is yours if you have a question.
Yes, I just want to make a comment about it. I'm very much in favor of this. It was brought to our attention in PLC today, and I was pretty thrilled to hear it. This is basically how we used to do it. And one thing we found with one thing I've seen with the block scheduling is it's really hard to keep kids focused for 80 minutes. And if you're having a rough day with a particular class period, and that does happen, that 80 minutes can go a very long time. So, and also regarding the electives thing, I've found that a lot of times the electives end up being a kid going to an elective they don't want, or getting a study hall. So I think that concern is, yeah, I'm not concerned about that. Thank you.
Dave, that's a great point. Just to piggyback on there, we definitely, Candace had some staggering data on students who either weren't even on campus by their senior year or being pushed into electives they didn't want. So there's certainly a proportion of that. Now, obviously, the opposite side, we do have that. The other thing I just want to comment on is just, and this really is germane for the curriculum committee's conversation, is any schedule we do, you can make it work. I mean, a block schedule, you can teach the block amazingly well, but it takes a lot of professional learning to how you do that. And again, as Dave said so well, when you're having a rough day with a group of students, one student, it's a long time. I've taught 90-minute block. I've been all of those levels. They can all work. It's just a matter of making it work.
And I'll be brief in a response, because I did want to just make a comment. I actually second what Dave shared, because I actually just came from a 7-period school district, and I teach I guess, core subject. I don't know if it's going to be considered core this year coming up, but it was very much so more fluent, being able to teach students every single day versus every other day. The only concern that I noticed from that last school district was you do see an increase in absences, because you see students every day. So the absence total for your particular class may go up substantially. But that's something I'm sure the district will, address. And then as far as it's good to see students, especially if there's a discipline issue, to see them the next day as opposed to letting that discipline hold over. So I actually do think this is a great idea for the district, and I fully support it. And hopefully some of the parents can get on board when they learn more about it as well. Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any other, is there anyone that has another question possibly to that?
This is Felicia. So my son had just mentioned that he was really, really nervous about it, but I really appreciate, everyone taking the time to educating us about what's going on, so that you know, we could talk to our kids about it and help kind of talk them through some of the concerns that they have. So I just appreciate that.
Thank you, Felicia. Are there any other comments or any questions that you guys may have?
No, and I just want to thank Dr. Savage for taking the time out of his schedule to be on tonight's committee. So I do want to say it was important that man did a video today, as well as our parents as well. And he's on our advisories, and I know his schedule's busy, but he knows it's so important that he's making a commitment to be part of this and so conversation. So I want to say publicly, Dr. Savage, thank you very much for being along this journey with us, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Spiro, but it really goes back to what Felicia said. This is really not about me. It's not about our team. It's about all the people we're here to serve. And I think at the end of the day, we know that this will be a tough blow for some of our students who are used to what they are used to. We know it was pretty controversial last time this was talked about. I'm very pleased that the team has worked very diligently to come up with great solutions to a lot of those workarounds. I'm just very proud of the work that everyone has done. It's my privilege to be able to share it directly. It's not a fun message to share necessarily, because I know there's drawbacks, positives and drawbacks, but very proud of the work that's been done. And this begins a long road to trying to undo some of the tremendous learning loss we've experienced and to create a more sustainable environment for our teachers by not having them. I mean, theoretically, they get 6 of 8. I don't know many teachers right now that have their planning period. They are often asked to pick up additional sections, and none of that is sustainable. So it's a hard decision, but I appreciate you all allowing us to. You're the first group to hear this message collectively, other than the videos we recorded, and we thought of no better group to bring it to than Curriculum Advisory. We're looking forward to bring it to DAC as well. So it's the very least I can do. Thank you.
Yes, I concur. Thank you so much, Dr. Savage, and thank you also, Dr. Spiro, for your hard work on this. So we are going to move forward now. So I guess we can go back to the agenda.
Yeah, Lori, I switched you over to be the host. Can you give me back that privilege for a second so I can share my screen, or make me co-host? Thank you.
So one of the things that we were asked to address was how we determine the scope and sequence of standards. So I just wanted to quickly walk you through. So the very first thing that we have to do is look at the state considerations. So we look at any new legislation that may impact a course. Every year they give us a summary of changes in the courses that the state provides. And we look to see what courses are no longer relevant. They usually call them daggered, and they let us kind of know a couple years in advance what the new courses will be. And then we look at those changes and look at the changes to the course standards and any requirements for those. And so that's the very first thing, is to determine our courses. And then we look at the data analysis. So we look at district data. So we have exemplars, which are like our formatives or our common assessments, and progress monitoring. And we look at what is our data showing. So is our data showing that our current scope and sequence, like it didn't really help students across the board, across the district with certain standards? So we take a look at that to see like what we need to do to change so that that data turns around in a positive direction. And we also look at the data analysis of the state assessments as well to make those same determinations. And then that's when we bring in teacher input. So we used to have like task force where we brought in teachers as a task force. Now we typically do that. We have leading and learning teachers for each of our core courses. And we bring them in typically fourth quarter, and we present all of the data to them, and we present any changes from legislation or course requirements based on what the state says. And then they give us feedback about how pacing worked for them or didn't work for them. And they give us implementation feedback as well. And then from there, we make those changes, and then we typically host another meeting in the summer. So that we have like one more time to kind of review what the new changes will be. And that is pretty much how we generally look at our scope and sequence, and we do this every year for our standards. And Mark, I see you have your hand up. You're on mute, sorry.
You guys aren't lip readers, I guess. Yeah, I had my hand up before this. I don't know how to call point of order. I don't know Robert's Rules of Orders. I need to look into it really good. But earlier in the evening, I think somebody mentioned that there were some people that aren't on the advisory committee on the line tonight. Did we do public comment? Or did we skip over it?
We moved it to the end because
You did, okay, I didn't see it, I'm sorry.
yeah, because we had so much we were presenting, and we thought it would be
Okay.
a little more fair for them to see all the presentations before they commented.
All right.
All right,
Appreciate
so
it. I'll take my hand
Yeah,
down.
Mark,
Okay.
we're definitely gonna get to the public comment at the end. Don't worry, we got it.
All right, great, thanks. I'll
any
mute myself again so you don't have to hear me anymore.
any questions or further clarification needed on the scope and sequence of standards that we were asked to share?
I guess I want to just express a concern I have regarding the pacing, and that's why I brought it up. It's the concern about the enforcement of the pacing. It's at least, I know I'm speaking for myself and for a few of the teachers I work with. It's something that's brought a bit of stress this year. We feel as though, it's if we're not up to the pace, which this year has been particularly challenging for that, we're kind of under a microscope a little bit with it. So that's why I wanted to see how the pacing was developed, just to see if there was like an actual, if there was a justification for it, or what. That's basically it.
So one reason that we do a scope and sequence is that we have a lot of mobility in certain zones especially. And so we want to be sure. So we know that not every teacher is going to be teaching the same standard on the same day. So we give some flexibility, but we try not to get more than 2 to 3 weeks ahead or behind, because we think about those students who are moving in and out. And so that puts a lot of extra pressure on the students and the teachers. If the teachers haven't taught something, or really far behind, or they were way ahead, is even worse sometimes. And so we do allow teachers. I had a request actually today. They're not ready to give the next exemplar. And so the principal put in a request to extend that. And we have been obviously allowing that because there's been a lot of students absent and teachers absent. So there has been some flexibility, I know. So I would encourage you to reach out to your admin to request that if you need an extension. So just let us know. So we certainly don't want to add to your tough year, Dave.
Cool, thank you.
We good, Lori? You want me to keep moving? Okay.
I think
sorry.
so, unless anybody else has any questions. But I appreciate your input, Dave. We really do.
I just for the good of the group, just to put one thing into perspective, when we talk about leading and learning, that's over 1,000 teachers that we have on our leading and learning when you add up the representatives from elementary, middle, and high. So it's a very large number of teacher representatives. Okay, I am going to turn it over to Candace to start us. Candace, do you want me to pull out of this presentation?
Nope, I'm gonna pull up the red line one. So we had just a couple of pieces of feedback based upon the last one we sent. So Dr. Q, if I can go ahead and share my screen.
I just clicked on it. Okay, whoops, sorry, you wanted the other one, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
There, let me find, are you still a co-host? I can't find you on my screen.
Yep, I can now share. So let me go ahead and. So we had just a couple of red line versions we wanted to bring up based upon suggestions from this committee, recommendations that were made. So one of the first pieces was, what if I don't have a child in the district or a single school? How do I submit it? So you'll notice here, there's now a new update that these forms can be submitted directly to any of the curriculum and instruction directors. So that piece was in there. We also made an update. There was clarification needed around 3, so that within 10 days of the challenge request being received, directors of curriculum instruction will either provide a resolution and or schedule. So remember, the ad hoc committee prior to this school year was not an ongoing committee. It met as needed. Therefore, it needs to be scheduled now that we have them. So that piece was updated to clarify. Then the other piece where an adjustment was made based upon the number of reviews and everything that are taking place is that it's not necessarily a level principal, but a level administrator. So that piece was updated and then also changed directly from the ELA coordinator to any content area coordinators, because sometimes there might be another content area that is able to jump in as well, and not just the English language arts. So those are the couple of changes that we had to bring forth to this committee. And now I will stop sharing and bring it back to the other screen. And we were looking for, hopefully tonight, letting Melvin bring us to consensus on that one for a recommendation. So Melvin, I'll bring it back over to you, and Dr. Q, if you want to bring it back to the other screen.
Can I
Okay.
make a motion?
Yes, if you want to go ahead and make one, go for
Yeah,
it.
I'll make a motion to, I guess it's not approve, to recommend the form as written.
And before we second that, understand, even if we accept it now, we can always look back over it, because I know some time has passed since we asked you all to look over the form. So if we accept it as is right now, we can always go back and then request another amendment for it. So don't feel like this is an all or nothing. Yes, Mark, go ahead.
Are we still going to have feedback tonight?
To offer feedback? Yeah, yes, if you would like.
I just didn't know if we could have feedback before we made a motion to approve it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Feel free to give some feedback. The only thing that I ask everyone to do is to be cognizant of your time when you give the feedback, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'll be really, really quick. I was at the school board meeting last week, and I had a firsthand look as to some of the books that are available in the libraries. And I'm trying to figure out why we would have to take that material and challenge it through a lengthy process like this, when 3 of the books that were mentioned in particular, one dealt with male rape, another one with pedophilia, and another one with bestiality. Why would we have to go through this process to have books like that removed from our libraries?
I will defer that to Ms. Houchin or to Dr. Quisenberry or to Ms. Alivato before I give my thoughts.
So Mark, just a little bit about that. Sometimes some of the pieces that are being shared and or read aloud may be 1 to 2 pages out of the book in its entirety. And one of the pieces, when we look at legislation, we're looking at the context of the material in its entirety. And since you were at the last board meeting, you got to hear our attorney talk about that Miller test and it meeting all 3 of those. So when we're looking at those, especially the intent of the material, it's really hard when some of those pieces are taken out of context to be able to accurately go over all 3 pieces of that Miller test and intent behind there. So that is one of the reasons why having that book read in its entirety is the recommendation, and then it allows a committee of individuals to be able to review, as not a single individual is making the determination there. At any point though, as was mentioned in that presentation, before filling out that form, some of these pieces, as simple as calling the child's school, asking if it's there. One of the pieces we did talk about is some of the materials are not actually inside the media centers or on the shelves. Inventory is very fluid there, but that's the reason for having the process as is right now.
And Dave, I see you with your hand raised, but I'm going to make a response on that. Mark, this is like I said, especially from a parent perspective, because those are concerns I would have also, is I guess the best step to take is notify your school board member, whoever your school board member is. That would be the direct step before you go through filling out this formal form. My understanding about this, the objection process, is this is actually an official file for you to have, as opposed to saying, or an official complaint. So this would be more documented versus more so hearsay. So it will be something more along those lines, if that makes sense to you. So my only suggestion to you would be the very first thing to do on those type of concerns is to, go to your school board, because
wait, Melvin, to clarify, it's not your school board member, it would be your principal. So part of the process, which is what we're approving. Remember, we're approving this process, not specific books. And so as part of the agenda tonight, it's not discussing specific books. It's discussing the process, which is required by our board policy. And so if through the pieces, if you have an objection for your personal child's for materials that you don't want your personal child to use, to Candace's point earlier, is you would contact your child's principal for how to do that.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I was just saying if Mark was, if it was really that pressing issue, but yes, you certainly would go through the principal and make those concerns known. And like I said before, that's where I went back to earlier. Always, don't be afraid to, be involved. Your kids get Google Classroom, so you'll know what books that they're reading or they're required to read, and you have access to partake in Google Classroom or to know what your children are learning. So I will let Dave and respond, and Mark, unless is there anything you wanted to add to that before Dave responds?
No, I don't think so. I just, if we're going to keep in mind of what we're doing here is for the best of students, I have to ask myself, in what world would any of that material that was read last night be considered in the best interest of a student?
Well,
and I would just leave that hanging out. That's a personal comment. I'll shut myself down now. But you asked me if I had anything to respond with.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the objection process would be the best option.
But this would be the only process a parent would be able to take, is what I'm assuming is correct?
I would say that would be the most formal process, yes.
Okay.
But Mark, going back to what Dr. Quisenberry said, and I want to make sure everyone else on this call hears it as well. You can always pick up the phone and call the school principal and say, hey, do you have this book in the library? And if that answer is yes, and you don't want your child reading that book or checking it out from the library, then you ask the principal right there on the spot, please put an alert on my student's account. I do not want him or her checking it out of the media center. And then that's it. So that doesn't have to go through a formal chain at any point. Any instructional piece or media, you always, as a parent, guardian, have the right to pick up the phone, call the school and request that information and have it taken care of right there on the spot. When we're looking at it in this manner, it's actually making a recommendation of, does this book stay in the media center for all students? Is it appropriate to be used instructionally, which is why it goes through a more formal process. But as a parent or guardian, for any piece, it is within your right to call the school and have that alert put on your child's account that if that book is there and it's not something you want your child checking out, then you ask for the alert on the account. So I just want to make sure that everyone hears that again. I know Dr. Q said it, but just making sure you know that piece of it.
Okay, and I'm sorry, and would parents have a list of the books that are in question? So that they
So
would know which ones they could.
Yeah, so in your child's, for any of our parents or guardians, all of your students have a launch pad. And on launch pad, there's 2 places that you can see the books that are available to your child to check out. One is called Destiny. Destiny is the actual paper copy books contained in the physical media center. And then Overdrive is electronic copies. So I'll use, for example, 2 of our high schools do not have traditional media centers. They are all electronic. So you would want your student to log into their Chromebook or any device, go to launchpad.leeschools.net, and then you'll see an icon for Destiny. That is our hardback books, ones in the media center, and then Overdrive. So that's how you have access as a parent or guardian to see that information. And you can do that at any point.
Can I speak now?
Thank you, Candace, and thank you, Dr. Quisenberry, for the clarification. Yes, Dave, you sure can.
Thank you. My understanding is the need for this process is essentially due process to prevent basically, I guess, the emotions of the moment from leading to widespread censorship and bans. I understand there's legitimate concerns about content with some of these books. However, I've been watching the school board meetings too, and some of the ones that are coming up, for example, one on the ad hoc committee's agenda is called I Am Jazz. A rural pastor at the previous school board meeting identified it as objectionable. It's actually about a transgender girl who is describing her own experiences. And for a population that's excessively bullied and has a high suicide rate because of the way not only the other children are treating them, but also adults are treating them. I think that's a big problem if we're talking about taking books like that out of schools. If we're talking about protecting the kids, we need to protect all the kids. So that's why I see it as there's a process to make sure that it passes that legal test for what's actually indecent and not just something that a small segment of the population doesn't like. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dave. So if anyone else has any comments, like I said, we can go through those, but just kind of limit it to maybe 30 seconds or less.
I just want to add one more thing. Julene asked a question in the chat. And so I wanted to clarify her question for the group. She asked if when a challenge form is submitted, if that is public record, and yes, it is. If you go to the Lee Schools website and then you go to the public calendars page, the committee posts all of the meetings there. And so you're able to access when those meetings will be. And then you're also able to access the forms for previous, so that if you're curious to see what books have gone through the process and what the outcome of that process was, it is public record and it's on the website.
Okay, thank you so much. So if there aren't any other questions, I think we can move to is the good of the or is the public comment next?
Oh, there is a motion out there.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you so much. So Dave, if you want to go ahead and make the motion, I guess to accept the updates as is, go ahead.
Yeah, my motion was to recommend the form as is.
Okay, and I will second that motion. So the materials use objection process form is accepted with the revisions given. And then, as I said,
they need to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Need to vote.
Yeah. I think we can just do a thumbs up.
All right. So yeah, if you want to just do a thumbs up, just go ahead and give it. electronically or in person? I mean, electronically or just by show?
Candace, were you able to count them?
It looks like I was missing 2 people's vote. So I'm sorry. Bottom. And if you can show that thumbs up, and if I don't see a thumbs up, I'm going to assume that that's a thumbs down.
Is that in reference, are you talking Vanessa and Melissa possibly?
I don't think I saw Mark. I'm sorry.
One of the problems is it disappears pretty quickly.
Yep. I have everyone. I'm just missing Mark. I'm going to go. Thank you. I made the assumption. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on it. And then Vanessa. So there we go. So motion carries 9-1 then, Melvin.
All right, so now this is the part where we open the floor up for public comment for any of our guests who are joining the committee, Curriculum Advisory Committee right now. So do we have anyone who is a guest this evening?
Melvin, I see Sharon raising her hand.
Yeah.
And then I heard Jamie afterward. So those were the 2 I heard right away.
Okay, and what I would like to do is limit the public comment to maybe 1 minute for the comment, and then a minute for any response if necessary. So feel free to, I think Sharon, feel free to give your remarks, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all for the opportunity.
Sharon, I'm sorry. Hold on, Sharon, just a second. I'm sorry. I apologize, Melvin. I'm sorry, but they get 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say, I'm going to have to talk really fast.
Okay.
Then take the 3 minutes, or take the 3. Feel free. I am so sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just didn't want you to talk really fast, but you only had a minute.
No, I just wanted to say thank you to the committee and to Academic Services for clarifying all of these issues. I am so in favor, and I don't want anybody to think I'm not, of parental rights. And with parental rights come responsibilities. And part of that is following the process and the policies, which the district has in place. And you've certainly gone out of your way to make it easy for people to challenge materials, either using Destiny, which can be immediate, or to file a challenge. So that is much appreciated. And I think people have to understand that if you circumvent district policy, the integrity of the policy, of every policy in the district, then is jeopardized. Because if you circumvent one, then people can say, well, you did it for that policy, I can certainly do it for another policy. So I just want to say thank you, because I know it was clarified to the board what options were available to everyone. Now, I just had one question. This is the actual process form that you were talking about tonight. Were there any changes made to the actual challenge form that gets submitted first before it goes to process? Because they were 2 different forms. One is the challenge to instructional and/or media material, and there was the process documentation. So were there any changes made to the challenge form? No, so that stands as is, because there's nothing on the challenge form then that talks about being able to submit your request to the district versus the principal. Or at least I don't think so, because that's what we had talked about at the last meeting. It was so long ago.
Ms. Olivato, if you want to respond.
Yeah, I was going to ask Melvin if you wanted us to respond, we can happily respond. So by the committee coming to a vote tonight, we will post our process document to the Parent Bill of Rights page with the actual challenge form. It was important for this advisory to be able to have that piece of it, but now the process document will be attached with the actual challenge form, so they will see where to submit that as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All set. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And you guys, you said we had someone else as well.
Yes, Miss Merchant, I heard her voice unmute.
Hi, yes, thank you. While I am very pro like mental health for teachers, I'm also pro very mental health for our students also. And I think moving from the block period to a 7-period schedule, extending the day and everything that they are involved in, extracurricular activities, clubs, sports, and jobs, especially for high schoolers. What can we do to maybe minimize homework going home to assist with that? I know that my son, I mean, just this week, he's a junior in high school and he's got football tomorrow until 3, and then he works from 4 to 10. So I think I worry, like right now with the 4 blocks scheduling time, he has kind of a whole day before homework is due. So I think that's where my concern is. And if there's no like feedback, I know that I have a meeting with a team with Dr. Spiro and his team next week. So if that's something that we could discuss at that time, if it's not something that you can answer tonight, that would be, can you please add that? Thank you.
I would be happy to respond if you would like.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave, and I'll respond after you. You go ahead.
This is Jeff.
Oh, sorry, Jeff. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's a very good question, Jamie. That was a conversation that we certainly had as a team through the course of the years as we were going towards a 7-period day. And that's going to have to be a process that the high schools are going to have to work with the teachers on. We're going to have to look at how often tests are given also. That way a student is not inundated with the same number of tests on a certain number of days. And the same thing with homework. And I have seen some districts who have a rotating schedule on certain departments, give tests on certain days or homework on certain days, so that students are not to the level in which you're talking about right now, where every single class every night has that. And so that's going to have to be a process that we'll work with our administrators on, so that we can do exactly what you said, which is minimize any of the concerns that the students have, so they can still have that whole high school experience. But we can elaborate on that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spiro. And I'll just add from my own personal experience as from teaching in a 7-period schedule, Jamie. It was the opposite for me, because I have to teach those kids every day over a 5-course week. So I was able to actually give work and then expect to do work the next day with the students, and then I could test with them at some point during the week. Whereas doing the block scheduling, I would have to give essentially work to them, and because I wouldn't see them until the 2 days after, then I would have to give homework or something as a form of remediation for them for the next time I meet with them. So just speaking from my experience as a teacher who's taught in both block scheduling and the 7-period model, it's a lot easier in the 7-period model because I get to see the student every single day. Now, I'm only speaking for myself as a teacher. I can't speak for the teachers who your son has, but to me, at least, it made it seem a little bit easier to not have to give homework.
I definitely appreciate that feedback. I only see it from my point of view, and I appreciate all the teachers, especially now. It's so hard teaching nowadays with the shortage and everything going on. So I definitely appreciate our teachers, and I want the best of both worlds, trust me. From a parent looking in, it's like, how can we satisfy both parties? So I just want to make sure that we're not, rushing our kids to grow up too quick, where they're in school working and doing homework and they have no time for anything else. So that was just my concern. So I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I believe those are our two public speakers. So I'm believing we can go to the meeting preference. So we can just do a quick thumbs up if you guys want to meet virtually for the next meeting, or a thumbs down if you want to meet in person. Because I believe we able to meet in person? Is that optional now? Okay. So it is an option out there for you guys, but we can also still meet in person on Zoom if that's your preference. So we'll just take an up or down vote for thumbs up if you want to meet virtually, thumbs down if you want to meet in person. Okay.
Candace, were you counting them? You were not counting them. Okay.
It's not, because they went away and not everybody voted.
Let's do that one more time, and this time we'll actually count your votes.
All right, on three. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I got 5 and 5. Anybody else do a count?
Did we get Brian? Did Brian give a vote on that?
I did not.
Oh, he voted in the chat box.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm in the chat box. I prefer in person.
Oh, so
Okay.
then that's gonna be 6 thumbs down, 4 thumbs up, Melvin.
Okay, I guess y'all just want to see my ugly face in person, but that's okay. So I guess it looks like we have a unanimous vote that, or not unanimous, but it looks like we have majority vote. So our next meeting will be in person.
Point of information, is it possible to still have the option of virtual, or does it have to be all or nothing?
Let
Dr.
me
Sparrow,
defer
can you-
that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to check on that. I can't remember what the board attorney decided on that last time, so we'll be able to send that out.
Good question. Thank you. Definitely. Thank you.
And we do not need to do next meeting topic considerations because we already have the agenda for the next meeting, which will be the math textbook adoption, as it is timely for the board meeting.
Okay.
And then I just have one more thing I wanted to add from the previous parts of the presentation for the challenge book process. We do need, part of the process is that we have members from the curriculum advisory committee that are on that ad hoc committee. So if you are willing to serve, Melissa Meehan, Dr. Meehan, who is not on the call tonight, but she has graciously been on our last committees. And so I'm sure she would love to pass that baton on to anyone else who would like to help as well. So if you are willing to serve on that ad hoc committee, please send us an email. And we are also going to send something out this week with different dates so that it's probably easier if you know what date it will be or what month you're volunteering for.
And would that be to you personally?
It will be to, you can email any of us, Candace, myself, or Helen, or Lori.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we can move to the good of the order. Is there anything that Vanessa, if I'm thinking the question you're asking is where we're going to be meeting, whether it's we typically will meet in the at the district building. Is there a particular room that we meet in? Do you guys have an answer for that one?
Usually meet in the curriculum resource room, but we will check to ensure that it is available that evening. And so we'll be able to send that out.
Okay. All right. So is there anything to the good of the order, anything that the members would like to add or address? if there is nothing to add, thank you guys for giving up your Monday evening. And it's nice to be back with you guys, even though we had a little sabbatical there. And I am going to motion for an adjournment at this time.
Second.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Quisenberry. Thank you, Ms. Olivato. Thank you, Ms. Houchin, Dr. Spiro. And if there's nothing else, meeting adjourned.
Have a good one, everybody.
All right, take care.
Right.